poor with no real source, and we could treat them. I mean, patients will come back every day to get the drug. They'll come back every 24 hours for an injection until they're feeling better. And so those are amazing things to have. You know, you find yourself treating patients beyond your comfort zones. There are kids up there with burns that in the hospital in the US, they'll be admitted to the hospital, they'll be on IV fluids. But when you're at the clinic, you find yourself doing wound debridements on things that you think belong in the ICU here, they are being doing in the outpatient. Because, you know, the ICU that you saw in Salima district is incapable of doing very much. The oxygen that they have there is literally like a blow-by oxygen. They just have a little IV tubing and they sit it next to the nose, and that's all the oxygen you're gonna get. They don't have an ability to do intubation, there's no ventilators. So most of these kids actually do better coming to our clinic and getting treated. Most of the pediatricians I've actually taken to the district hospital have preferred working in the outpatient clinic because they can actually do more there than they can at the hospital. The hospitals have very, very limited supplies. So, you know, we have all these formulas in medicine on how do we treat, you know, like people that come in with DKA from complications of diabetes. They only have a dipstick there, and they treat with just that, and somehow they survive. I don't know how, because we know they're not supposed to with just a dipstick, but they've figured out how to work around things that they don't have. We have very limited imaging, like I talked about. That's actually like a picture of Tom there with the medical student. You can't see very well when they were draining the very large liver cyst. A lot of wounds that we treat while we're there. Let's see, so we talked about that. Using the suture, headlights, gloves, scrubs, you know, fetoscopes. Most of the kids with like fractures, they basically just, you know, have traction. They will sit in a hospital with an arm up for, you know, 2 months, because that's the only way they can get everything back, because there's no orthopedic services that are available. This was us doing a fistula repair. You know, the bed doesn't have the ability to go up and down. They didn't have any hospital gowns, so we're wearing like little just plastic aprons. That's all we had. They just pour alcohol on the patient's bellies and we start operating. I'm actually convinced that the Malawians have the superior genes, because I think if I did the things that I do to them, to any people in this room, most of y'all wouldn't make it. But they survive these things. These surgeries are clean at best, because we do it with a small bar of soap and they're just cleaned with some alcohol, and then you start operating. We were literally on our feet, on the ground, you know, like kneeling on the floor with boots on and operating on someone. So there was nothing sterile about what we did. But this woman had a vesicovaginal fistula. She hadn't been able to go to her sister's house and spend the night. Funerals are a time where people support each other in our communities. She hadn't even been able to sleep at a funeral where most people are supporting whoever has lost a family member. And when she left, she was so excited that she can finally go home and live again, be able to go to someone's house and spend the night, be able to go to her funeral and actually stay overnight. Because for about 12 years since she had developed the fistula and she was leaking urine constantly, the embarrassment that was involved with that kept her isolated. And so it was worth it for us to be kneeling on the floor for 3 hours with an anesthesiologist who was actually manually pumping oxygen into this patient while we were doing the procedure. And life-changing for her. You know, one of the things is dealing with suffering. I'm realizing, because I was trained as an American physician, it's very difficult for me to see sort of the gap between what we have here and what they have in Malawi. There's a woman in the corner over there who's waiting for her surgery. She's literally laying on the ground in the operating room, and she's the next person to go in. Usually we have patients with beds. They come in with monitors. You can see their heart rate. You can see all sorts of things. Over there's no monitoring. So she's actually pregnant and waiting for C-section, laying on the floor, moaning and crying. This is me checking a woman who's in labor. They all just go on the floor, trash bags. You bring a trash bag, you lay on the trash bag, and your deliveries happen on a cement floor in a trash bag. You know, up at the top is a group of patients that are basically spending the night in the waiting room because they realize that if they try to go home and come back, they're not going to have a space. spot. So if they see patients for the day and they close, they just stay there until the next day, and most of them will stay there for days until they're seen. Preventable deaths are very difficult to see. We delivered more dead babies than we could have wanted, and for things that could be prevented if they had the resources and ability to take care of it. And that's where I have to figure out how to accept the things that I cannot change while I'm there. And it's very difficult for me sometimes because I also know this is a hospital where my mother laid on the same floors, and I don't know how she survived. And it's amazing that she survived delivering all of us there. The collaborative effort between us and the local staff has been really amazing. They learn a lot from you, and I think it's also good to know that you will learn a lot from them. I mean, these guys know how to MacGyver anything to make it work. I mean, it's amazing, the stuff you start to figure out how to bend this and bend that. We had patients where we needed to put Foley catheters in, but there wasn't, a bag to hook it up to. We figured out a way to get your empty IV bags and create a Foley bag out of that. And so it's those interesting things that you start to learn how they rig different things to make things work. One of the things is when you bring equipment, again, like we talked about with what Alaskan Medical Missions does, all of those things that she brought, the equipment that would be reusable, otoscopes, blood pressure cuffs were like difficult to find. The district hospital had 2 blood pressure cuffs, and you would have to run around and look for them. And she had a suitcase that had multiple blood pressure cuffs. And that district hospital covers 500,000 people, and they had 2 blood pressure cuffs. And so things like that, books that you bring, you can leave behind as reference books. And, I appreciate having something like this warehouse where we can pick up things like that for our next future trips. Again, we talked about this already, working with the staff. And then these are just, sort of like the pictures of all the rewards at the end. Again, I always say, for me, I feel like when you go, most people talk about the financial loss you have, especially for physicians, because while you're there, you're not getting paid. But in some of these patients you will never see again. Some of their lives you're going to touch, you're not going to really know what's going to happen to them. But there's something about doing something for someone that will never be able to repay you, that I think it gives you so much more reward. I find that I am much more blessed by what I do than, for me, myself, than probably what I even give them. I feel like I get more. I am a much better person because I get to go back to Malawi and do what I do. I think the burden I carry with this has also made me a much more well-rounded person. I feel that if I had come to the United States and I focused on taking care of myself and my immediate family, I think the whole purpose of what was in it and the ripple effect of it wouldn't have been nearly as profound as it has been by having a bigger responsibility that's outside of myself. My daughter, a few years ago, I had a habit of going into their closets and stealing things out of their closets and taking them to the orphanage. What if I didn't think they needed anymore? I would just take it. So one of these days I brought back pictures, and I'd forgotten that some of those pictures had outfits that belonged to my kids. And my daughter screamed, "That's my dress, and I really like it. I can't believe you gave it away." And it was like this whole thing, and with girls, it was a lot of screaming and, very productive talk I tried to have that she didn't understand. But I have since taken Isabella back home, and she has been at the orphanage. And one of the first things I realized that my kids, who are very much American, the concept that there are kids that don't have parents, or both parents die, is something that they don't understand. And again, sort of like the whole hunger thing, it's inconceivable to them that there are 126 kids who have neither parent. And so Isabella would come to me and she would say, "So Harriet doesn't have a mom?" I would say, "No." "And she doesn't have a dad?" "No." "And then what about Olivia?" She would go through all these different kids, and she realized, and how come she doesn't have shoes? Why is her shirt torn? She became acutely aware of things that she had taken for granted to be so normal here. And so the next time, before we left Malawi, one of the things that she did, she said to me, I don't need anything that I have in here. I'll just wear what I have and we can just leave my suitcase. That was number one. And the second time I was going to Malawi, I actually was downstairs, unsolicited. There were boxes that just sort of showed up, and she said, I went through my closet and I haven't worn any of these clothes. And I want you to take them and give them to the kids at the orphanage. And this is a girl that a year before that was screaming and crying because it was a little girl that was wearing her dress that she liked. And so, I think part of it is the legacy that you also leave behind. And I really want to take this moment and thank Alaskan Medical Missions for everything that you guys do. I walked through the warehouse. I told Tom not to come to Malawi without walking through that warehouse next time, because he already knows all the things we didn't have, and they have a lot of the things in there that we could have. And, just for this amazing community of people, you all came here today to give back. And I can't do what I do in Malawi if I don't have the support of people like you. And I feel like, soon I'm not going to say I'm no one, I don't know anyone, because you're all my $1 million pockets right here. So, thank you for having me, and, I appreciate the opportunity.